I know who you are.
All right, JP. Better.
Run. Break. Good.
Good job, Roy. You guys got to widen out. Ashton, play right tackle. Show them how close to tackle is. Back up, guys. Back up.
You're off the ball. Make sure you're off the ball.
Let's get that ball. You got that ball so high.
Yeah.
Let's get it out in his belly like it's a real run. All right, that was just like out here. All right, we got to sell that thing. Go easy on Kyle. He's got prom tonight. Go easy on Kyle. Can't mess up that face for prom. Go easy on him. Good. Oh, no. The hand a little bit lower, right? Want the hand in here. Does that make sense, fellas? This hand's our presence, right? We're helping out our buddy with this hand. Our eyes are outside, ready to strike, right? A little bit closer and a little bit further outside because you don't want to be right on his foot where he can step on you. So give yourself a little bit of room and make sure I can touch him. This is the greatest team game there is. Sport of football. It's the best. Okay? You can't play this game alone. There's other sports you can go play alone, individual sports. That's not football. So what's most important to us is the team. So when I say team on 3, you guys are going to clap. You're not going to say team, okay? Because we don't have to say what we're about. Okay, it's just that sound that you have in football. When you break the huddle, what you're saying to the team across from you, you're saying, hey, I'm together with my teammates. All right, we're one as a team. Does that make sense? Team on 3. 1, 2, 3. With your coaches, fellas.
With that, let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Jeff, it's always interesting to listen in as the coaches are coaching, and there's an importance and attention to detail is one of the things you pick up even when you're just going through walkthroughs with this team.
Well, and you're in this situation, and the amount of work that is done and invested into, researching these players before you finally go ahead and pull the trigger on either drafting them or signing them to an undrafted free agent contract. You already have, you go to your scouts, you already have a list of things that, hey, this is really probably going to work with us. These are some things right off the bat that we're going to need to improve upon with his game to suit what we need and what we're going to ask him to do. So, it's a nice get-to-know-you process and, some simple things like, hey, we don't say team at the NFL level. We just clap. But it's also, trying to get him to know him. And then, hey, now that we know each other and, look, my job is to turn you into the best football player I can. Hopefully the money you're making is just going to be a brief fraction amount of what you make and take away from this game. So you see it and you see the fun with it. You kind of see some of the kids with the big eyes. You see some of the kids with the smiles who know they pretty much have a spot in place already. But, it just gets the ball rolling, gets the guys comfortable when you start to get all 90 of them together.
Well, one guy that had a lot of attention, second-round pick, Michael Hall, defensive tackle. He was asked if he has a sense yet of how he fits in with this Browns defensive line group.
No, sir, not at the moment. I wish I could answer that question for sure. But, just getting into my playbook right now and, just learning new faces in the building and getting familiarized with everything.
What are just your overall expectations walking in the building right now?
I mean, just being a leader out here, it doesn't take, age or, how many years in the league to be a leader. Just setting high expectations for myself and, just demanding a level of excellence and play out here when I step on the field.
The scouting reports talked about your long arms.
Yeah.
First of all, do you think that's like a strength for you, and how does it help you?
I would say, yeah, it's a strength, but I mean, having long arms, with no power is just is nothing. So you got to have it, just having great power in your legs. A lot of D linemen, they're great. They have a lot of lower body, they're better on the lower half. But a lot of guys are upper body strong, but I'm one of those guys who get a lot of my power from my lower half of my body, for sure.
Is that something you've always noticed about yourself?
Yeah, I definitely, for sure. I mean, I can squat crazy, so, for sure.
And you can be sure the defensive line coach and Jim Schwartz, they can't wait to get this young guy rolling here.
He's such a unique guy, and the fact that you take into account that he's still a month away from turning 21 years old, and the way he spoke with the yes sir, this is the type of kid Michael Hall is. And you talk to people associated with his high school program in Streetsboro, very very polite in that manner. Yes ma'am, yes sir. It's just the kind of kid and the way his parents raised Michael to be. But there's a lot of excitement. I think the fact that you get a guy this young, this established as a pass rusher at this early in his career, there's guys that, they can work their entire career in that just never comes, to be that adept as a pass rusher. Now, you take into the fact that he's 20 years old. You want to probably get a little bit more weight on him. Good weight, albeit. so he can be a little bit more factor in the run game. I think it is a perfect scenario that he doesn't come in here where you're putting much weight onto his shoulders. There's a lot of second-round picks in the NFL where they're expected to come in and be starters and contribute significantly right away. Mike, it's okay if he doesn't hit the ground running from day one. If he does, which I think that pass rush ability is really going to translate well for him, and certainly with the Jim Schwartz defensive system, that is probably going to be, an easier path for him to get on the field. The Browns love to use a lot of pass rushers. They love to be able to mix up their pass rushers inside, outside. And I think in obvious passing situations, second and long and third and long, I think Mike Hall could probably take some, reps at defensive end. He's got the size. He's got the long arms. He's disciplined in what he's doing. I think this is going to be somebody that Jim Schwartz is going to grow rather fondly of rather quickly, just from the fact he's going to be able to continue to help this team get after the quarterback, which is, exactly what Jim Schwartz wants to do, and then let everything else fall into place with the defense.
How do you think this roster stacks up against the rest of the AFC North? And I think that's still the best division in football. I know you've addressed this Locked On Browns podcast, but how does this Browns roster stack up with the rest and the best of the AFC North?
Well, I mean, you look at Baltimore, and Baltimore had a pretty decent draft, but Baltimore lost a lot of talent. And look, it happens. You're that good. You lose a defensive coordinator who moves on. Then, you're going to have, get into the game of having to start replacing talent. Certainly what Baltimore did, but a lot of it is going to come from the draft and how quickly does that work out for them. Cincinnati as well had a pretty good draft, but, lost your best defensive player. The whole T. Higgins situation is still out there that nobody knows what's going to come of it. Whatever, people want to question about Joe Burrow, I don't know if any of those stories are true or whatever, but he is coming off another season-ending significant injury. Pittsburgh, you believe maybe Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are better than what Kenny Pickett was, but both of them obviously, had their warts the last couple of years which led to both of them, being moved on from the franchises they were with. I think Pittsburgh did well in drafting depth at offensive line. But to count on 3 young players to contribute right away out of the offensive line position is probably a lot. And the Browns, it was just, their draft was just about, bringing in some depth and guys that most likely would be 2025 players before they would be 2024 players. You think it really looks well for the Browns. Obviously, Baltimore's got a big calling card with their quarterback in Lamar Jackson. Cincinnati, the same case with Joe Burrow. I think the Browns are hoping they're going to get that best version of Deshaun Watson. But that's where it seems like it kind of is going to wrap up. Everybody's loaded. The division was loaded last year. It's going to be loaded again this year. But that Baltimore and Cincinnati right off the bat are, coming out with top 5 quarterback play.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Deshaun Watson and his mindset with this offense as he gets ready to begin working back from that shoulder surgery. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Moneymaker from the Ohio Lottery has no interest in beating around the bush. Money Maker. You play the game, you could win money. Up to $2 million. With more than $88 million in prizes from $50 to $500. Moneymaker cuts right to the cash. Unlike this guy.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Deshaun Watson on QB Unplugged with his personal quarterback coach, Quincy Avery, talking about his mindset in this Browns offense that's been remade with Ken Dorsey.
I don't need to try to get a lead, even though it's 0-0. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can take these little things, these little dinks and dunks and trickle the ball down the field where I'm being a game manager. I'm not trying to be a game changer and be the superstar that people know I am. I don't need that right now. And I think that's where I got to continue to tell myself and preach to myself that I need to do that each and every week, not just against the Baltimore Ravens.
And Jeff, you know what? I love hearing that from him because there are times where you need to be a game changer. You don't need to do it every play.
Well, the thing is, and look, it's always going to be equated, and people are just going to put this on him about what he makes, and it'll be about what his statistical production is. Now, last year, In my opinion, it was going more than okay. And, you saw where it ended up. And the last we saw of them, the huge second half, which, accompanied with a Greg Newsome, pick six, it turned into the Browns winning a very, very important game on the road in Baltimore. He was not going to have to play lights out if he played the final 5 games of the regular season. He didn't need to throw for 1,500 over 5. You just need to minimize your mistakes. If you're a good team, it's okay sometimes to say, hey, we didn't get any points, but we did flip the field. And, now this team is, got the ball 1st and 10 at the 9. We have other ways of, basically closing any team out on the defensive side of the ball, certainly, and certainly on the special teams aspect of it. So for Deshaun, and looking around, and I think this is because of, the way it ended in Houston, where it was basically just him was the only one that was really getting the job done in any capacity for that Texans team. And it's kind of hard to get yourself out of that mindset. Like, I have to do every single thing right for my team to win. So that's something, and that's within Deshaun. We don't know what he took of that as the season rolled on last year, where he was unable to play, sorry. And you basically just saying, hey, you want to know what? Hey, we punted. Okay, well, it's okay. The field flip. We got the field goal. Now they're back. The pressure's on them again. Our defense came through again. Now all of a sudden, we didn't play great, but all of a sudden we have a 10-point lead. So it's just understanding that, turnovers are going to, destroy most of your Sundays anyway. Just play smart, play clean. And like he said, you found a way to, chip it down, throw underneath the coverage. Just find ways to keep yourself battling and give yourself the most chances you can. As long as you do a lot of things the way they need to be done, you'll hit the big things. It's just making sure that you don't chase big plays. If you just work towards the, what's supposed to be drawn up, that'll come. And then eventually the big plays will come, as we saw last year with Joe Flacco down the stretch.
So this is 2024 QB Power Ranking, CBSSports.com. It's kind of, so they go Mahomes 1. Hard to argue that. Brock Purdy 2. Josh Allen 3, Joe Burrow 4, C.J. Stroud 5, Lamar Jackson 6. Lawrence 15, Stafford 16, Deshaun Watson 17, Geno Smith 18, Russell Wilson 19. In the rationale, Watson flashed as a play-extending passer in 2024, but only in between abrupt and nagging injuries. You know what? I guess that's fair. He's got to be on the field. If he's on the field for 7, 8, 9, 10 consecutive games, then we'll get a better sense. To judge him based on playing 3 or 4 games, quarterback is a position you got to be out there. There's a rhythm. There's a feel. You've got 10 other guys on the field that you got to get to know, and he just hasn't been on the field enough with his teammates to get to know him.
Well, and the other thing is even last year, it's not like that play was consecutive. He was in and out, and then was finally back again before he finally suffered what was the season-ending injury against the Baltimore Ravens. I honestly think if you put him at like 16 or 17 right now, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's probably warranted. There's some of us who feel he's played better than that. But again, if you're not playing 15, 16, 17 games, it's not necessarily fair that they say, oh, well, he was a top, 5 quarterback, even though he barely played, because, there's a whole unknown process, that we're not basically getting the opportunity to grade because he was unable to go. As long as he understands that all he has to do is go out there and make the plays that he is supposed to make, nobody's going to be upset. I think this team will be successful. This team will find its way back to the playoffs. But again, it has been difficult because now he is going to his 3rd season with this team, and it was bits and pieces year 1. It was certainly bits and pieces year 2. So hopefully, with everything finally, and, even still, this year's going to start a little slower than normal because, he's still working his way back from the injury. But you hope that by the time, September rolls around, he's at 100% top peak condition and he's good to go.
Yeah, and I know you've talked about this on the Locked On Browns podcast again. If he's healthy, this team's going to be pretty hard to beat, I think. I'm assuming you feel the same way.
You look at some of it, and not even bringing the Nick Chubb equation into it because we still think that's a bit of an unknown. You go out there, in 10 personnel or maybe say, 14 personnel. You're going to go out there with Deshaun Watson as your quarterback. You want to play your receiving running back. You can play Naheem Hines. You can play Jerome Ford. You're still going to be able to have David Njoku on the field, Elijah Moore, maybe Cedric Tillman, maybe Jamari Thrash, Jerry Jeudy, Amari Cooper, there's not a defense in the world that is going to be able to, take into account and cover all of these people, as long as Deshaun gets proper pass protection, of course. But there's not a defense in the world that's going to be able to cover these guys it's just not feasible. So therefore, the success should just come, and it should be pretty easy to do. Look, they've hedged their bets. They've doubled down on the contract and the move they made for Deshaun Watson by putting in what they did to Amari Cooper, putting what they did into Elijah Moore, putting what they did into Jerry Jeudy. It doesn't, and we saw last year, because what did we see? 2, 3, 4. We saw 5 different starting quarterbacks for this team. And some of them every one of them found some, varying degrees of success. So if you think the guy that you were waiting for a long time to be able to go ahead and acquire, and then finally got him, and now you're waiting for him to finally play consistently, there's no doubt that the Browns believe if he is able to play 15 plus games, he will be a very, very strong contributor to this team, and he should be very, very successful.
All right, before we go to break, this is from the Bleacher Report. Every team's biggest remaining needs. For the Browns, they say edge rusher, linebacker, and cornerback. I'm not sure I agree with that, with any of them. Cap space, $13.6 million. Realistic targets, linebacker Quan Alexander, cornerback Witherspoon, edge rusher Ngakoue. Remaining teams' needs are really just depth-related on defense. They have all the answers on the starting position on both sides of the ball. They're pretty deep at cornerback. How many cornerbacks do you want them to play? And they don't want to play more than – they want to get out of playing three linebackers. They want to get to their dime package or nickel package pretty quickly.
I mean, look, and I know for some of these guys who are writing these pieces, look, you're given an assignment and you've got to get a piece out. So you can't basically write the piece and say the Browns have no needs. Here you go, send. It's not going to work for your editors. It's certainly not going to work for the people that are writing your checks. But the Browns are returning their top 5 defensive ends from last season. That's a fact. Alex Wright, I thought, was a guy who really, really developed for this team. So I'm not saying they might not be interested in bringing in another edge, but do I see it? No. Linebacker, this is a team that doesn't really want to play them anyway, and I think between Hicks and certainly between, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, this team has linebackers they would feel comfortable with being on the field. Cornerback, the Browns are going to lose a cornerback probably over the summer. They brought 2 guys in with special teams pedigrees. You have, obviously, your top 3 that we all know and we think so highly of. Cameron Mitchell, who was drafted last year. You just drafted another one this year. You had a Lassie who played a little bit last year when there were injuries. The Browns are very, very deep at cornerback. My surprise from all of this, to be honest with you, is why is not tight end on this list? Because it's great that you have one of the better tight ends in the NFL, and David Njoku, but that room is pretty bare after number 85.
I'm with you. Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, plus national expectations for Nick Chubb. They put some numbers down. We'll talk about that. Sports4CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I was listening to Quincy Carrier, and he was talking about David Njoku getting more volume in catches. And I agree 100% because it seems like when a quarterback goes to his tight end more, it seems to open up the field because they're going to double up on Amari Cooper, and they're going to double up if Jerry Jeudy starts having great games with it. But if you start going to your tight end, that opens up the whole field. And to me, a quarterback's best friend is his tight end. Your thoughts? This is Thad from Youngstown. Thanks for taking my call.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Jeff, David Njoku's a yard after catch guy. Get him the ball and laugh as people try to tackle him one-on-one.
And if you go back to David, like the thing with David, it was a couple of years ago in Los Angeles against the Chargers. He had a monster day. It was like 7 for 152. David's kind of got this energy where, like, the more he's involved, you see David starts to get like some streakiness, like some hotness to him. And, we certainly saw it, obviously, in the Jet game, that fateful Thursday night, of course, where the Browns clinched the playoffs. You want to get David kind of involved early and often. It just gets him a little bit more amped up, and we know David's a pretty amped up guy to begin with. But, you start to feature David, and one thing that really came from those final games of the regular season was they were trying to get the ball early to David Njoku. So the issue then is now you're not on defensive side of the ball. You're not so concerned. You're not pressing so much on your deeper routes because you have to worry about what number 85 does on these short routes. And as you said, the ability to run with the ball once he catches it. And that's all of a sudden when you notice that the vertical game really started to pop for them, because now you had the eyes drawn everywhere. They were drawn underneath. They were worried and concerned about deep coverage. So everybody was starting to make plays for them. And you just it's the key. If we're working to the right, everybody's going to start shifting to the right. The second they're shifting to the right, we're going to start working to the left. If you keep creeping up, we're going to start to go over you. And that is one of the keys to it is, just as great and as David is with the ball in his hands, which is a huge, huge asset for this team. But it just starts to open up every other level of the passing game for this team. And that is one of the things that really, really was the biggest takeaway about the closeout of the 2023 season, was just how David getting involved on a consistent basis, similar to Kelsey in Kansas City. Now everybody's eyes are on him, which made life easier for everybody else.
All right, this one from the Bleacher Report. Expectations for stars returning from injury in 2024. For Nick Chubb, stat projections: 8 starts, 749 yards. That's they say right around 5 yards carry, 4.9 yards per carry. 16 catches, 131 receiving yards, 7 total touchdowns. Chubb may not be ready to go at the start of the regular season. Browns probably won't thrust him into an every down role once he is ready to play. In the past, Kevin Stefanski has rarely overworked Chubb, who has topped 300 carries only once as a pro. Those are probably pretty realistic thoughts as far as, in my mind, those are realistic expectations for him relative to numbers.
I think, if you were in a situation where you said, hey, are we going to sign up for that now? I think you'd say, hey, that's probably pretty good. I think some of this might also have to do with, when we finally get the schedule, maybe where is that bye scheduled, so the Browns can kind of say, hey, hey, if it's an earlier bye, all right, so we're going without Nick till October 15th, or, something of that nature, because you're just going to try to get a feel of where he is. And look, it's certainly early in the process to be sitting here, in the middle of May and saying what exactly we truly think Nick is going to be capable of. But, if you told me we're getting 8 games, you're getting 750 yards, he's going to run for his customary 5 yards per carry, I think everybody would sign up for that. Look, if the Browns' biggest belief is that they are going to return the playoffs, which I think should be the belief and certainly is, the threshold, you feel that Nick is going to be more important to you in January than he certainly would be in September anyway. So the fact that he would be getting a later start to the season is more than fine.
All right, this is kind of interesting. This is from Warren Sharp Football Analysis. He tweets this out. Most expensive wide receiver rooms in 2024, so the upcoming season. Most expensive, the 49ers, $55 million. Then the Seahawks, Cowboys, and Dolphins are 2, 3, and 4. Bengals are 10th. Keep in mind they got a couple of guys, they franchised T. Higgins. They got Jamar Chase coming up. Browns are 12th, $38.9 million. Ravens are 27th. Steelers, 31st. Packers, who actually have a pretty good young wide receiving room, are the cheapest at 11.5. Takeaway there, though, is, the Browns probably, I would imagine, want to extend Amari Cooper a couple of years and see if they can do that at a reasonable number.
Well, it's a pretty big number, but the cap continues to go up. You are hedging your bets and doing everything you can to make sure that the quarterback that you put so much of a heavy investment into is going to pay the dividends on the return of that deal that you want. But you need wide receivers in this day and age, and the way the position itself has progressed, these guys come in, and every year we do this during the draft. Well, look at this draft class. Look at this draft class. Look at this draft class. And the position as a whole, 30 years ago, kids were lucky if they caught 30 passes as a senior in high school. Now they're kids, catching 75, and maybe they're not even the top receiver on their high school team. The game has evolved every level into more of throwing the ball, which means the receivers are more developed, more ready to go when they get to the league. And the fact that you get these big draft classes, you get some guys that you whip right through their first 3 years in the league, rip right through a 4-year deal of being a second-round pick, and they're up to get their long-term deals. I mean, these guys are, putting up monster numbers. They're getting paid accordingly. To be 12th is, more than fine. You look at some teams right around where the Browns are. I would rather have the Browns wide receiver room than some other teams that are currently right around them. I'd rather have the Browns wide receiver room than the Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver room. So the way it works out, but, it's what it is. It's, offense. The most important people in the NFL right now are going to be quarterbacks, they're going to be receivers, and they're going to be pass rushers. Everything else, will get figured out. But those are the top 3 monetary positions in the NFL today.
All right, before I let you go, I know you've addressed this on the Locked On Browns podcast. Do you think Andrew Berry has another late off-season move in him? He's had it to, I think it was Zadarius Smith last year. Do you think there's that kind of move left in the Browns general manager?
There was 3 last year. There was Zadarius Smith right after the draft, and then the summer brought Rodney McLeod and also brought Shelby Harris. Now, could something fall into their laps? Certainly, something that's unanticipated. But again, I'm going back to the tight end position. Harris is, you brought him over. It didn't really work out. Ricci, the story, the local guy and all of that stuff. But, you look at what you were able to get when you really tried to commit to making the tight end a bigger part of your offense last year. So the problem is David is a very significant part of the Browns offense. If something were to happen to David, I mean, I don't know how you just all of a sudden now punt on the position, start playing offensive linemen, start playing more wide receivers, in the fact that, David was just doing such a masterful job over the middle. I believe something will get done there. And Andrew was never one to rest on his laurels. Let's just hope the move that is made is not by force. It's just something that the Browns really saw that would be a good fit for them, and they just had to pounce on it. But I don't think Andrew Berry I don't think he's done with his roster building. I certainly think this is a guy that's always been active in the summer. I expect him to continue that.
Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns podcast. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
All the best, Dave. We'll talk soon.
All right. Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff with the Browns on the Locked On Browns podcast. A little later in the show, we'll talk Cavs, getting ready for that Game 4 with the Celtics. But after this quick timeout, Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer at cleveland.com. We continue talking Browns and the just completed rookie minicamp. Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Lance, you were out at the weekend's rookie minicamp. Some takeaways and reactions to what you saw out in Berea this weekend.
Well, first and foremost, I've always been a big fan of how Kevin Stefanski runs his practice. There's very few wasted moments, right? So they're very well organized. They're always on task. The pace is really good. In terms of what the guys did, I thought all the young guys had great movement skills. So within their position, I thought they moved very well. They first step, their ability to, the fluid hips by the skill guys. I thought Zach Zinner, I thought there'd be a little bit more of a regression because of his injury, but he looked great. He's a big guy. Nathan Watson was bigger than I thought. He moved very well. They all focused very hard. They were really good in special teams. I was very impressed in terms of they mostly did individual, but it was very detailed. I thought the new coaches were outstanding. Dickerson is going to be outstanding. His attention to detail is great. Cesar, the new D-line coach, he was detailed, hand placement, butt in the air, you name it. So very detailed, oriented guys, very positive energy out there. I've enjoyed going out there for a number of years, and this year was no different. They had a really good couple days.
It looks like they got even a little bit younger and more aggressive in the coaching staff, from what I can tell. There's like an energy, and that's not saying that it wasn't there, but maybe it's just because it's the beginning of it again.
Well, I think it's the beginning, and they have, they are younger, so they have a lot more hands-on, right? So Callahan is an older guy, so he, and he's not as hands-on with his drills, but he's obviously the best in the business. Where Dickerson's a younger guy, he's hands-on, but there are some things that are the same. First of all, if you look, I'm going to start with Dickerson, and it kind of trickles down to everybody else. But if you think about Dickerson, I think he has the hardest job replacing Callahan. But there are some similarities. Now, their styles are different, and maybe their energy is different, but they're both very attention to detail oriented. They're both they win with reps, so they rep things over and over. They both coach on the run. They're both very positive. I'm not a big believer in yelling and screaming. That's not coaching. That's yelling and screaming. These guys give positive feedback, consistently giving positive feedback. So yeah, I think they're in good shape. And the D-line guy was the same. And they were really well organized. And those guys, those young guys and the young players, they're very all excited to be there, and it was good to see.
All right. There's also some rookie undrafted free agents. Did any of those undrafted guys kind of jump out?
Yeah, it's funny they signed Jacob Sermon. So I'm through day one. I'm going, this quarterback is really, really throwing the ball well. And the reason why is I'm trying to break down Thrash in terms of his ability to change pace, to sit on his routes. And as I'm watching him over and over, the ball keeps being delivered. So this big kid, he's originally out of went to Washington, went to Central Michigan. Then he finished his college career in Northern Colorado, threw for 1,200 yards last year, so his numbers weren't eye-popping. But this is a big guy, 6'3", 6'4", he's 230. He can make all the throws. But more importantly than the throws, being the only quarterback at rookie camp, I was really impressed with the way he handled himself. He was very poised. He was very clear in his ability to repeat the plays he was getting from Stefanski and the staff. They did some team drills, especially at the end of day two, where he had to actually make a bunch of calls. He was very poised. His feet were very good in the pocket. He made every throw. I think it's a great arm to have in camp, and a guy that I was real impressed with. Makes all the throws and looks like he belongs out there for sure.
All right, this is from PFF.com. So this is strongest, weakest position groups after free agency and the draft. And so they have the Browns defensive line as the strongest group in the league. Unit led by NFL's best defense player, Myles Garrett. Browns defensive line terrorized opposing quarterbacks and offensive lines in 2023. While the group was inconsistent against the run, no team was better at rushing the quarterback in 2023. And they got most of those guys back. You could argue Michael Hall Jr., a guy that we'll talk about in the next segment individually, and also Quentin Jefferson. They might even be a little bit better along the defensive line.
Well, yeah, I think the rotation's better. The one thing you can see with Michael Hall is that both extremes, his first step in his ability to rush the passer is going to be elite. He also has a lot of work to do in terms of taking on double teams and being that anchor in there. That's just not what he does well right now, but he will. And the things you can't teach are that explosion, athletic ability that he has in that big body. So, that defensive line is going to be really, really, really good. And more importantly than getting more guys, the guys they have are now a year into the system, another year into the system. So these guys understand it's a matchup league. Schwartz is the master of finding those matchups. A lot of versatile guys up there that can play multiple positions. It'll be very, very interesting. I think they got a little bit deeper at linebacker. Their secondary obviously is outstanding. I don't think saying this is the best defense in the NFL is a stretch. Now, they got to go out there and do it. But they've done it, and they got guys. So the guys who have done it are back, and they brought some guys in who have high level expectations moving forward. So I see them being very, very good on defense, and it starts up front with that defensive line.
All right, this one from the Bleacher Report before we go to break. 2023 draft picks primed to explode during their sophomore campaigns. They go with offensive tackle DeJuan Jones. Jones never looked overwhelmed or out of place in his rookie season. During that was becoming in a dominant stretch of play prior to a game in which he suffered the knee injury. The rookie allowed only 1 sack, according to PFF. It's just a big guy. It'll be interesting to see what the new line coach, Andy Dickerson, does with him and how he improves that run blocking.
Yeah, so here's another guy. He's a guy when he wins with length, right? So he's got these massive long arms, so he could do things. I've said this before that only him and Orlando Brown could do, right? And there's some other guys who are kind of getting that realm. These big, long, athletic guys are becoming more in vogue. But here's a guy, DeJuan Jones is so long that he can invite pass rush moves and trap these defensive ends because he's so long. So he can invite those long arm techniques inside. He can actually let people into his chest. It'll be very, very hard for the Browns to keep DeJuan Jones off the field. But we all know in the NFL, there's going to be injuries. So the Browns have created depth, and I know there's going to be competition, and that will be good during camp. But in my opinion, it creates depth that they need. Everybody in the NFL at this point in time, it has to be 2-3 deep at almost every position, week in and week out. You got guys who are going to miss 2 and 3 games during the season, so they got to have depth. DeJuan Jones, with Conklin coming back, Jerry Wills, they got some guys who can play, and obviously inside they're really, really good. Zinter adds to that, so I think they got some depth on the offensive line. And the one thing I will tell you about Dickerson, you're going to have to bring your energy each and every day. He's an excitable guy. I like watching him a lot.
Lance Reisland and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out on the side of the break. Film analysis, video breakdown of each of the Browns rookie draft picks. Sports4CLE will be right back talking Browns with Lance Reisland. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Told you Lance was out at Browns Rookie Minicamp. We're going to take some film breakdown video analysis that Lance took out at Minicamp. So let's begin. Michael Hall, Jr., defensive tackle. Take us through what you saw with him and what you like with what we're seeing from Michael Hall, Jr., Lance.
Well, everything people have talked about his ability. So you're going to see here, first of all, say the new defensive line coach focuses on stance, start, and alignment. The details are important to him, which I think is very crucial. But you're going to see him stunt here, move inside to his left, and get upfield. And for a big guy like that, he moves so incredibly well. So what you got is you're getting exactly what you want on Michael Hall. He is going to be a third down pass rush specialist who's going to add another matchup issue. He can play inside, but he's quick enough to play outside, so you can put one of those defensive ends inside. He's big enough to handle the run. Now, he's going to have to work on that, taking on the run, but he can do that, and he can be taught those things. This type of step and this type of movement skills, he, along with the rest of these guys, they showed great movement skills within their position. This is just a great stunt inside. This is something he'll be doing at a high level, taking one gap. This is one gap penetration. Michael Hall is going to make some big plays this year on third down, I believe.
Yeah, Hall, again, just 20 years old, so he will get bigger when he gets a little bit older, too, just naturally. Next guy we're going to look at, Zach Zinter. I like this pick. What did you see from Zinter?
Well, first of all, a super well-spoken young man. Listening to him interview and being interviewed by, the people down there, he is really well-spoken. He has got a really good head on his shoulder. He's also a very confident young man. And I was very impressed with his movement skills. And right here is just a drill the Browns are working on where the center's going to block back and our guard's going to pull. And this would be a counter. And the Browns run this play all the time. Sometimes the guard will kick it out. Sometimes the guard will log. Sometimes the guard will get out and around. The guard has to be very flexible and very athletic. And I'll tell you what, a guy coming off major leg injury and major broke both of those lower leg bones, he looked very, very good, very light on his feet. All these guys came in good shape. Obviously, they got to get in football shape, and that happens. But, again, a guy with great movement skills within his position. Enjoyed watching him during the 2 days. Really, really impressive. Big guy. Again, another just monstrous guy with a little bit of an attitude. So, really good player. Enjoyed watching him as well.
All right, so Zach Zinter was the Browns' third-round pick. The wide receiver they end up taking is Jamari Thrash. You mentioned really good route runner. What did you see from Thrash, and take us through what you see in this clip as well?
Well, first of all, you're going to see in the clip is just a slant. He does this on all his routes. So he's going to push vertical, and you're going to see at the top of the route, he sinks his body, puts that left foot in the ground, and drives to the slant. And you can only do that if you sit. His ability, he was exactly what I thought he'd be. His change of pace is outstanding. The one thing about him compared to the rest of the guys, this is not an overly huge individual. You know, some of those guys you stand next to. But once he gets out there and you see his footwork and his ability to stop and start, his ability to change pace, his ability to get the top speed and then stop that top speed is so impressive. So he gets the top speed very fast. He can slow down very fast. He's a really good detailed route runner. He will only improve with Amari Cooper and Jerry Jeudy and these guys. But here's a guy who's an elite route runner who creates separation with his change of pace. I thought he had a great camp. A lot of people had issues with his hands. He caught the ball very, very well all week. And this Sermon kid was firing some BBs in there, so he had to be ready to go. Kid had some really good arm strength. So really impressive route runner. Another guy, really excited, did really well on special teams, covers real well. Really good 2 days out of Thrash.
The next guy that we're going to talk about is a linebacker, Nathaniel Watson. And we kind of heard Andrew Berry allude to the fact that, you know, he may develop into a Sione Takitaki type who has some flexibility to play multiple linebacker positions. Take us through what you saw from Watson in the rookie minicamp.
Well, first thing the video I really took of him that I really liked was his attention to detail on special teams. So he's on all these special teams, and this is where he's going to shine, especially with this new kickoff rule. And this new kickoff rule, you're going to have to have guys who can cover and guys who can block because it's going to be an explosive play for the offense. Now, this is just a punt drill that they did, but two things stood out to me about Watson. First thing is he is very fast and moves better laterally than I thought. Initially, when I watched him on film, he's all downhill, so he's a little better laterally than I thought. He's also a lot bigger than I thought. His lower body, his hips, his butt, through his calves, he's a big, young kid who has really, really good power and strength. He was really good on the walkthroughs. He was at the Mike backer. He did some really good things during walkthroughs, understanding formations, understanding schemes. So a really big learning curve inside for him, but just a really impressive-looking athlete. And another guy, all these guys, really well-spoken guys, high-character guys. Really enjoyed listening to them and watching him over those 2 days. I think he'll make an immediate impact on all special teams.
Well, that's the other thing. If he's going to be trained to do special teams, you would expect him to be on the 53-man. The other thing that Andrew Berry said is they think he can eventually be a green dot guy, which means they think he has he's a high IQ guy. You don't put the green dot on someone that doesn't completely understand what you're trying to do defensively.
Well, he has a presence out there too, right? So the thing you notice about a quarterback, a linebacker who has presence, everybody kind of gravitates to him. And you could see that out of Watson. You could see it about a lot of these guys they draft. These are high-character guys that think they're good. I heard Kevin say, the great thing about rookie camp is these guys come in ready to go. These guys were in shape. They were ready to go. Watson's one of those guys, you gravitate to him. He's a guy who really likes playing football. And sometimes at all levels, you question, do people really love playing the game or do they love the other parts of the game? This is a guy, Watson, who loves to play football. And you can tell, I can see why they see him as a green dot guy because he's a guy who loves being out there, smile on his face, ready to go. And those guys are hard to come by. And he's a guy who is going to get better and better as the days go along for sure.
The next guy that we're going to talk about, a cornerback who a lot of national guys think the Browns got a steal with when they drafted him in the 7th round, Miles Harden. What did you see from Harden?
Well, I expect a lot of things out of the guy, but this is a guy who probably was most impressive to me with the anticipation I had going in. So I had him, I knew Hall, I knew Watson, I knew Zinter, but this is a guy who's extremely fluid, and you can see this in his back pedal right here. His attention to detail in all his drills, he runs every drill like it's his last. He runs every drill like he's fighting for a spot. His feet, his hips, his ability to get in and out of breaks, turn and run. He's another guy that ran a 4.5, maybe doesn't have the top high-end speed, but you can see his football IQ. He understands routes, and he's extremely fluid. And some guys look perky, jerky out. This is the guy who looks like he's just floating on air. So super impressed with this guy's movement skills like I was the rest of the guy. But another guy who's going to help on special teams. He was flying down the field as a bullet. A guy who wanted to be there. Really, really impressed with this guy both days. Well-spoken, very confident in himself. I think another steal. The Browns know how to draft DBs, and this is another guy I think they did really well on.
So the last guy that we're going to talk about, the second of the 7th round picks, Juwan Briggs. What'd you see? What'd you notice about Briggs?
Well, the first thing you notice about him is how thick he is. My goodness gracious, his neck and his arms and his lower body and calves and hips. What a thick young man. So what he gives you is he gives you great energy. And another guy didn't have a lot of lateral movement, doesn't have much of a pass rush plan, but is a guy who's an absolute sponge. Always wants to be first in line, maximum effort guy. This is the kind of effort you got to have if you're a late round pick trying to make the team. But he's got really good hands. He's really violent. He jumps into every drill. He's just got a lot to learn. And I think he's a practice squad guy with a pretty bright future. He moves very well. And you're talking about a guy who knows how to practice. Really enjoyed these late round guys. Really, really fun to watch. They're fighting for their lives. And you can see it for sure.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out, cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. Really insightful coverage on Browns with the video analysis and film breakdown. We're going to turn our attention to the Cavaliers, getting ready for a game they have to have. Game 4 against the Celtics, Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in a few hours. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com and I will talk Cavs when Sports4CLE returns. Stay with us.
Moneymaker from the Ohio Lottery has no interest in beating around the bush. Money Maker. You play the game, you could win money. Up to $2 million. With more than $88 million in prizes from $50 to $500. Moneymaker cuts right to the cash. Unlike this guy.
We turn our attention to the Cavaliers getting ready for Game 4 at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse against the Celtics. Losing Game 3 at home, they are now down in the series 2-1, and we find this out. Chris Fedor tweets this out. Donovan Mitchell, dealing with a calf injury, has required treatment since Game 3 ended. Had kept him from being on the court during the open portion of this morning's shoot-around. Let's welcome in Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. Sam, we were talking, calf injuries are kind of tricky. Do you think Mitchell's able to go?
Yeah, I would think that he's probably going to try to play. You know, they're so reliant on him that, and he's well aware of that, you know. So I think that, you know, just a total guess here is that he will try to go. even though he missed shoot around and, may take it easy before the game and warm-ups and all that, it just really depends on how badly this strain is. These are bad things. This is what's keeping Kristaps Porzingis of the Celtics out for this series. And during the regular season, if you have a calf strain, you're probably out a week or two anyway. But, this isn't the regular season, so I kind of have to suspect that he will give it a go here in Game 4.
All right, so this from ESPN Cleveland's Tony Rizzo. He had a thought that was similar to mine regarding Mitchell and the Cavs.
He's all by himself. It's maddening. He's too classy a guy, an athlete, to come out and say it. But, Chris, what he would love to say is, can somebody, for the love of God, put 25 up?
Exactly. I mean, you can tell he's just waiting for somebody.
Mobley's not going to do it. Garland's not going to do it.
Then who's
going to
be?
do it? I don't know. Strus hit.
Max Strus in the series beyond the arc is 5 of 18.
Isaac Okoro can't make a shot right now to save his life either.
Aaron, if you're kicking it out to the corner to Isaac Okoro and you expect to move on in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's not a real great plan, is it now? Sammy, what's your takeaway? As you've watched these 3 games, your takeaway from this series so far?
Yeah, I mean, your feelings there and Tony Rizzo's feelings there are dead on. They're it's not to be harsh, but other than Game 2, and I thought Game 2 was their best playoff game in 6 years, obviously, since LeBron James was here in 2018 and they won at Boston Game 7. That was the Game 2 in Boston. But that, you can't have that be an aberration. You have to have production from, your starting forwards. Let's start there. Last game, starting forwards, Isaac Okoro and Max Strus combined to shoot 3 of 15. Okoro was 1 of 7. And Strus was 2 of 8. You're not going to beat the Boston Celtics that way. You're just not. You got to knock down those shots that are available to you. Evan Mobley in Game 2, amazingly aggressive. A huge reason that they were able to win that game in Boston. Game 3, not quite as aggressive that game. And I don't know why, because Mobley has a clear advantage over the Boston big men, especially without Porzingis. So I just think that, you have to be able to find some sort of resolve beyond Donovan Mitchell. And Darius Garland, obviously, disappointing playoffs, really disappointing since he returned from the broken jaw. Not a great season. Now is the time to deliver. You can't wait around anymore. You've got to, if you're Donovan Mitchell's sidekick, which is what everybody's kind of become, now you've got to step up now, and this is where you earn your money, this time of year. If you're going to pull off the upset against the Celtics, you can't just have Donovan Mitchell doing it by himself. You need the Celtics to slip up a little bit, get some dumb luck, and everybody else needs to bring their A game, and they just have not done that. They didn't do it against Orlando, other than Mitchell and Jared Allen when he was healthy, and they certainly have not done it nearly enough in 3 games against the Celtics.
Does it seem to you like the guys are, like everybody not named Donovan Mitchell is just hesitant? It's not that I don't want to say they're afraid to shoot, but they're hesitating. It's like, you can't do that. It's got to be in rhythm, and you have to be confident. You have to want the ball. You have to want to be in that situation. And I don't see anybody on the Cavs other than Donovan Mitchell that wants to be in that situation.
That's what it sure looks like. There's a lot of hesitancy. There's a lot of guys who are kind of, as opposed to playing to win, it almost looks like they're playing not to lose, like they don't want to mess up, but there are going to be mistakes when you're aggressive, and everybody can live with that, and the key there, though, is to be aggressive, potentially make some mistakes, but you got, make some plays, put some points on the board, and you've got to find another guy who's going to get you 20, 25 every game, along with, a third guy who's getting you 15. You got Mitchell, you got your second guy getting 20, 25, and then you got another guy getting 15. And, you have to do that. And really, the way this team was built, the idea behind this team was supposed to be Donovan Mitchell's our best player, but he's not the only guy who's going to be able to carry us. Darius Garland's, Karis LeVert's, Max Strus's, obviously Evan Mobley being the biggest name of that group. These guys are all expected to be 1As or 1Bs to Donovan Mitchell. And they just have not done that in these playoffs really for a second year in a row.
So if they're going to get this one, and even the series at 2-2, what do you think it looks like? Obviously, it doesn't sound like Jared Allen's anywhere near coming back. He wasn't on the court in the pregame shoot-around, so I think he's probably not going to play. I wouldn't expect him to make a miraculous recovery. What's it look like for them to get a win in this one?
You have to go back to first of all, you've got to defend better than you did in Game 3. You did a great job defensively in Game 2 and for part of Game 1. But Game 3, you can't just allow those wings and Brown and Tatum, and that's a big ask to slow those two down. But you've got to make their lives more difficult and turn them into volume shooters. They're going to get their points, but try to make them take a lot of shots and a lot of missed shots to get those points. So defensively, you've got to step it back up, which they're capable of doing. And offensively, again, just what we've been talking about, Dave, you've got to find somebody who's confident and in rhythm and playing to win and believing you can win other than Donovan Mitchell. We just talked about, we don't even know if they're going to have Mitchell. So they've just got to rally around this idea that, look what we did in Game 2. Let's go back and look what we did there, because that was our best playoff game as a group ever. So let's see what we did right there and go back and attack and be aggressive and play that way again and let the chips fall where they may. If you're the Cavs, you're going to go down, you need to go down shooting.
All right, before I let you go, who do you think can be an X factor? I have one in mind. I'm curious as to who you think could be a guy that steps up that maybe hasn't.
Yeah, there's probably a whole list of those, but I would probably start with Karis LeVert. It seems like, when Mitchell has it going, LeVert offering that spark off the bench. When Karis LeVert gets going offensively, that really opens things up. And it really creates a problem. We saw it in Game 7 against Orlando. We saw it in Game 2 against the Celtics. He's really the guy that they're counting on so heavily to be a spark and, to give them that bench scoring. So, Karis LeVert has to kind of have those big games. They all play hard, but you can't, you see it really on the faces of Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro, and Dean Wade. You could just see the determination on their faces, and so they all deserve credit for that. But you've got to be able to deliver if you're Karis LeVert, because you're the whole bench right now in terms of scoring.
I think Dean Wade could be a guy, and
Sure.
he was the only reason I say that, he wasn't afraid to shoot. He hadn't played in however long, and he was looking for an open shot, and he was not hesitating to take. Now, he didn't make nearly enough of them, but that's step 2.
Right.
You gotta take them in rhythm confidently before you can make them. In next progression, now I want to see him give me 5 or 6 threes, and we're feeling pretty good, Dean Wade.
Right. Dean Wade, Max Strus. I mean, they need to spread the floor. Sam Merrill. Their three-point shooters have to come out and really deliver to spread the court, because we just heard the stats on Strus, and he's 5 of 18 on threes in the series. He was not good for the most part on three-point shooting in the series. And Strus is another guy you can just see he's playing his buns off, but you've got to knock down shots in the playoffs. That's why they traded for you. And you've got to, if you're JB Bickerstaff, you've got to find ways to make it easier for Max Strus, Sam Merrill, Dean Wade, Darius Garland, Karis LeVert. You got to find ways to make it easier for those guys to get open shots. Because I'm telling you this, right now, as Tony Rizzo said, they're letting Isaac Okoro shoot all he wants. They'll go down. The Celtics will say, if Isaac Okoro beats us on threes, so be it. So you've got to find ways for the other guys to get those open shots too.
Sam Amico, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Sam.
All right. Well, thanks a ton for having me, and we will talk to you soon.
Sam Amico, make sure you check it out. Hoopswire.com, always great stuff, not only for the Cavs, but the entire NBA. Cavs getting ready for that Game 4 against the Celtics in a couple hours. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.